Magic Chef MCWC50DBT wine cooler has power and shows temp reading of 74 degree, room temp, but won't keep cool down. Compressor will come on every once in a while if you nudge the fridge, but after cooling a few degrees it stops and goes back to room temp.
How old is your Magic Chef wine cooler?
10 plus years.
How long has this been going on with your Magic Chef wine cooler? What have you tried so far?
Started a couple months ago. Have not attempted anything to fix it.
Anything else we should know to help you best?
For a while I could gently fist bump on top of the fridge and the compressor would run and the unit behaved normally for days or weeks. Gradually the duration it would run shortened to hours and now not at all.
Hello, my name is Welcome to the JustAnswer site. I'm here to help with your question about your refrigerator. Please disregard any requests for a phone call as they are generated by the site and not by me. I'll return shortly with more information. Based on your description, it sounds to me like you have a bad electrical connection somewhere on your wine cooler. I'm suspecting that the connection was making so the cooler would work and then the connection would break, shutting it down. Your fist bump probably was jarring enough to remake the connection and subsequent compressor running. It could even be the start relay, which on some compressors is mounted inside the compressor terminal cover. If it is not mounted securely, it could cause the problem you describe. A possible reason it got worse is because there could be a carbon buildup from a poor connection arc and now electricity cannot pass. I do not know if you would want to try and locate the problem, and if you do, I'll need a photograph of the compressor and the surrounding compartment. I await your reply.
Hi Terry, I located the relay and shut off next to the compressor. I disconnected and then reconnected, and then plugged the cooler in. The coil fan immediately started and then the compressor started, but then both shut off after about 5 to 10 seconds. I tried jostling the wires and components while plugged in, but nothing happened. I then fist bumped the top on the cooler, overtopped the display and control panel, and the unit started up and then shut off after 5 to 10 seconds. I couldn't get it to start up again, either by bumping, jostling, or unplugging and replugging again.
That sounds like the loose connection is in the area of the top display, control panel. If I were you, I'd disassemble those components if you can. Often the control panel will have a ribbon cable and that may be loose. Just a guess at this point. Keep me posted.
That was my plan when I get home tonight. I also read other posts where folks removed the control panel and found weak or broken solder joints, and were able to revive their unit after fixing the solders.
That sounds reasonable and a good plan. Please know that you can follow up for next 10 days at no additional charge. Thank you for the opportunity to help you. Any luck with the control panel, etc.?
Well, I pulled out the display and control board to check for anything loose or suspect and found nothing out of sorts. I gently prodded at the solder welds and components and everything appeared to be in order. After putting that back in its place, I powered on the unit again and the fan in the rear and compressor started right up. It ran for several minutes and then shut down. Then after several more minutes, I didn't pay close enough attention to the time, it started up and shut down again after about 10 seconds on its own. I did a reset to factory settings on the display to no avail. I did a fist bump on top of the unit, after it was off for about 5 or 6 minutes, and it started and stopped after 5 or 10 seconds. I did notice after it initially started and ran for several minutes, the chiller was getting cold.
I'm wondering if the compressor is shutting off on its overload device. The compressor has a dual protection device that works based on temperature. If the compressor shell gets too hot, it shuts it off, and based on the amp draw of the compressor. Possibly the compressor is coming up to speed but drawing high current and then shutting down on the safety. You can if the compressor is running hot by placing your fingers on the shell. You should be able to keep them there for 10 seconds or more. Caution, the compressor may be very hot. If it's drawing too much current, the only way to tell is with an amp meter or amp clamp as they are called. Most homeowners do not have one of these meters. Do you know if there is a capacitor? It would look like the attachment and could be the problem as well. Some of these capacitors are now solid state and they are small rectangular boxes with 2 wires attached. Let me know.
I have a multimeter with which I think I can test for current. I don't know about the capacitor. I'll need to pull it away from the wall when I get home later today. Are there other tests I can perform on the relay, compressor, etc. with my meter and how? I can't figure out how to attach a photo to my reply.
I've attached instructions how to send a photo. If your multimeter can check for current, it is probably a very small rating. That is, I don't believe you will be able to run the amp draw of your cooler through your meter. Besides, even if you could, the meter must be in series with the load, cooler, and that requires some rewiring to accomplish that. If there is a capacitor, your meter may have a capacitance checking feature. If so, you will have to read your manual to see how to use it. Otherwise, you can use the ohm scale. The capacitor must be isolated, removed, and caution, capacitors hold electrical charges, so don't touch the wires or touch them together. Place 1 meter lead on each capacitor terminal and you should see the ohm hash climb and then fall. If it does nothing, then the cap is bad. If the ohms go up and do not come down, it is bad. Caution, if your meter is solid state, you can be deceived by the climbing ohm hash. You must be patient to see it climb, stop, and then fall. I'd have to see the relay to determine if it is a mechanical or solid state type. The compressor can be ohmed out, but let's wait until you've checked the other items. I say this because the compressor is running. If you had a bad motor winding, it would not run at all and probably trip the breaker.
Here is the circuit diagram. Not sure if that helps until I can get home and open them back up.
Yes, the photo helps. There is no capacitor and the start relay is a PTC or solid state. The principle of operation for the PTC is that as current runs through it, the material it is made of increases its resistance to electrical flow and ultimately stops it. A relay would open its contacts, breaking the path where this device creates so much resistance it can't flow. If the device is cold, temperature-wise, a meter lead on the blue wire and another on the outlet wire labeled S on the diagram, sorry, no color shown, there should be a path, with the meter on ohms. You would get the same reading on the M outlet wire as well. When in the circuit, the S would then have no path, and there is no way to check this because the machine must be running. An amp clamp would reveal if S were not stopping the flow because the amp draw would be very high. The safety overload can be heard opening by a very distinct click. Usually you must wait several minutes for these to reset to try to run the compressor again. The alternative, and I hate doing this, is to replace the relay. I hate that because that reduces a tech to a parts changer. But not being in front of the equipment, it is very difficult time-consuming and beyond the scope of this platform to instruct you how to do a test with the machine running. Besides, it is dangerous and you really need to know what you're doing. Let me know if you do test any components and if you care to try replacing the start relay.
I believe I have heard that distinct click. If it clicks or opens, then the compressor will not start, correct? I would hear it click, only after the compressor had been running and then shut down, correct?
Yes, the click is the device opening because of one of the two conditions I mentioned. And the compressor would not run until the device cooled and closed its contacts. Yes, you would hear it click, only after the compressor had been running and then shut down.
Is the purpose of the relay solely for starting the compressor? If the relay is bad, then it continues to allow current flow to the compressor, which in turn trips the overload switch, yes.
Yes, that is correct about the relay.
Alright, I'll test it later today and let you know what I find out. Thanks.
Yes, please do let me know.
Not sure if you are still there. Took the back panel off. Pull off the PTC. Test leads each side of the relay returned a number. Plugged it back in. Vacuumed out a small amount of fur on the coil, but nothing that I thought would make a difference. Powered on it and it has been running now for 31 minutes. Cooling nicely. Compressor runs real quiet. I think it thinks he's brand new. The compressor is pretty hot. Longest it's run without shutting down for weeks. What happened that it runs now? Could I have jostled the connections enough to make proper contact? That might have been weak before. Also, there is a tin panel that completely covers the access to the components in the back. With that on, I suspect it was getting really hot inside. Could the compressor overheat and auto shut down as a result? The unit is setting on carpet, with very little air gap along the bottom. Running non-stop now, perhaps because it has better air circulation with the panel removed. Going on 42 minutes without shutdown. Funny, it ran without incident for 10 years in the same spot, and then now decides it's too hot. Could that indicate old age of some sort? After closer inspection, the panel forces the fan to suck air from the front grille and returns it across the compressor and pushes out the other half of the front grille. The suction side is isolated with a sleeve in to keep the supply and return separate. Still, I'm considering leaving the panel off and see what happens.
Sorry, did not see your post. We'll answer in depth in the AM.
Update. The unit reached the set thermo setting sand shutoff. It did not auto start again, but did start with my fist bump and ran till thermo off setting.
Again, my apologies for not getting back to you sooner. I'll address each post with a reply below. Test leads each side of the relay returned a number. All that does is confirms that there is a resistance path. Without knowing what the value should be, the numbers are otherwise meaningless. Vacuumed out a small amount of fur on the coil. Sounds like it wasn't enough to create a problem. The compressor is pretty hot. Did you try my suggestion, placing your fingers on the shell? You should be able to keep them there for 10 seconds or more. That would give a clear indication that the compressor is too hot to operate. Could I have jostled the connections enough to make proper contact? That might have been weak before? Yes, you might, however, this does not account for the compressor running so hot there is a tin panel that completely covers the access to the components in the back. With that on, I suspect it was getting really hot inside. If this were an issue, you would have experienced it from day one. Besides, the manufacturer wouldn't have put it there if it impeded proper operation. Could the compressor overheat and auto shut down as a result? Yes, the overload safety device works on temperature and amp draw, so if either is too high it will shut down. Trouble is with sensing temperature is that the shell of the compressor must get very hot for the safety to open. In turn, that means that the motor windings are very hot and it takes a while for everything to cool enough for the safety to reset. If this goes on unnoticed, the compressor will fail. The unit is setting on carpet, with very little air gap along the bottom. I have no way to determine if that is sufficient space to provide cooling or not. It sounds like you discovered the airflow path for the condenser, so the carpet is not an issue? Perhaps, running now, because it has better air circulation with the panel removed? Again, this would have been a problem from day one. It ran without incident for 10 years, and now decides it's too hot. Could that indicate old age of some sort? Airflow is now ruled out? Running too hot can be a sign of wear. Still, I'm considering leaving the panel off and see what happens. It won't hurt. The unit reached the set thermo settings and shut off. It did not auto start again, but did start with my fist bump and ran till thermo off setting. Reaching the set temp indicates a few things. First, there is no refrigerant issue because if it lost some it would not reach temp. Second, the compressor appears to pumping sufficiently, which indicates that it has not lost capacity. So where does all this leave you? I still believe you have a loose electrical connection somewhere, but the question is where? This is evidenced by bumping the appliance to get it running. Or there could be an issue with the thermostat. That is, it breaks okay but won't remake, to call for cooling, and when you fist bump it jars it enough to make. That would apply if the thermostat is an old school rotary dial type, but the diagram shows that there is a control board with temperature sensor, so that means digital. The sensor works off of resistance that varies based on temperature. Colder equals reduced resistance, warmer equals increased resistance, and the control board is set to react to that, so I doubt it is the temp sensor. The compressor running hot may or may not be an issue, as some of these appliances run hot enough that an oil cooler loop is used to cool the oil, so the compressor won't have lube problems. This is similar to a truck, or car I guess, that has been set up to tow. A transmission fluid cooling loop is added in the vicinity of the radiator, which keeps the fluid cool enough to work properly. So I'm not overly concerned about the high operating temp. That leaves having the cooler service, since there is nothing else I can offer for help at this point. If I were there in front of the machine, I might have a shot at finding the problem, but from this text-based platform that can't happen. With the cooler being 10Y. Oh. And the cost service might make it where you are better off to replace rather than repair. Only you can answer that question. Thank you.
Wow, thanks for your time and info. The compressor gets too hot to keep my fingers in contact for more than a couple seconds. Do you think a control board replacement would solve the remake issue? As I sit here typing this, the compressor just started up on its own. Temp reading is 63 degrees. Setting is 57. I may take the control board out again and take another look and see what happens. Thanks for your time.
No idea if a new control board would solve the start/stop problem. The compressor being that hot is probably a concern, but I can't determine why it is running so hot.
Another question, if you don't mind. Is the safety overload a mechanical operator, where perhaps it could get stuck at shutdown and my fist bump dislodges it?
The safety overload is typically a mechanical device. They also called thermodisc and operate on the snap action principle. That is it by middle it will snap open when he did and snap closed one cold. Thank you for your writing. That's supposed to be bimetal.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert now, visit justanswer.com/ythi.